women. Meanwhile, some black men decided that they were going to create the passport bros trend because black women were not their preference or their cup of tea, and we were not submissive enough, and we were not this, and we were not that. Like literally, they created a trend to disrespect black women and uplift other women. And now they're mad that black women are affirming black women.
Hello YouTube, it's your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, coming at you again with another YouTube video. And the title of this video is called Passport Bros Created This Movement to Bash Women. It's a haters club, says Lizzo's cousin. And the way this video came about was as I was searching through YouTube looking for some material to speak on related to the Passport Bros, I happened to stumble across the video that you saw at the beginning, in which there's a woman kind of describing why she believes the Passport Bro movement was created and what its purpose is, and overall why she thinks it should be taken down. And pretty much to sum up what she was saying is that basically women have created positive movements that empower women without bashing the men, but on the other hand, men have done the opposite, in which for some reason, she thinks we're very upset with them. We have some type of, we're bitter towards them. So as a result, we created a movement to pretty much, lower their self-esteem, talk down on them and that kind of thing. And that's the only purpose of the Passport Bro movement. And as a result, she feels that we should be, taken down and, that kind of thing. So, well, one, I want to debunk that, but also I want to talk to the major reasons why the Passport Bro movement was created. Again, it has nothing to do with, us being bitter towards American women and wanting to wish any type of harm or anything like that. We don't wish any harm towards any woman. We don't want anything to happen to them. That's not the reason we do that. In fact, majority of times when you are listening to Passport Bros and that kind of thing, we never really just outright diss women or do that kind of thing. A lot of times when you do see the few examples here and there where maybe, one of the Passport Bros says something negative about them, or maybe even in some case calls a name, it's usually out of self-defense. It's not based upon us just willingly just going out and just looking for reasons to bash women. That doesn't happen. So you have that. The other thing is, some of the four main reasons I would say is that the Passport Bro movement was started was because every man that's a Passport Bro has a different reason. Some did it because they were having dating issues in the West, and so they saw this as a solution. Some others did this because of, the expenses in the West. Everything is crazy expensive, apartments, all that kind of thing. Whereas in other countries, if you get a remote job, even making like $30,000 a year, you're living like a king somewhere else. So that was that reason. The other reason was it did give men like peace of mind. Some guys wanted to escape like all the fast-paced living in the United States. We had so much stuff going on in the news. A lot of times people are just very stressed on their jobs. So sometimes some guys want to just travel for the biggest thing, just peace of mind. And then, of course, lastly, the other thing was Passport Bro movement gave some guys a second chance. You had many guys who had pretty much given up on trying to get married again, trying to date, that kind of thing. Some men have been taken to like the divorce court, went through harsh divorces, lost their houses. A lot of men weren't able to see their kids and that kind of thing. So by them being able to travel, they were able to establish new families and live a completely new life. Again, not necessarily, put it this way, it created a new chapter in their life where there was some peace. They finally were able to get some peace and happiness, even though the beginning part of their life, they had suffered a lot of trauma and dealt with a lot of things in the United States. But this gave them another opportunity to escape. And on top of that, to have a lot of, brothers as well to support them in their pursuit of happiness. So that was some of the main reasons, and I just want to go a little bit deeper into that. So, for example, in the West, we're experiencing, as Pablo Frescobar would say, experiencing a beauty deficit in the West. As you know, in the United States, 60% of women, they're either obese or heavily overweight. Most men in general don't want to date obese and heavily overweight women. They're not really checking for that. Um, so what that does is, by that number, by the obesity being so high, it shrinks the pool of eligible women that most men will want to date or even marry, which makes competition extremely difficult. Very, very difficult. And on top of that, what it has caused is even women who are, let's say, because keep in mind, I said 60%, that leaves about 40% of women who are eligible. And of those 40%, keep in mind that all these women are not attractive looking as far as like facial, as far as like the hair and that kind of thing. And not to mention like the attitudes and that kind of thing. So as a result, even a woman who's necessarily like a 5, that woman who's a 5 could have the demands of a woman who's like a 7 or 8. So in many cases, men wind up having to date down. Sometimes men have to date single mothers with several children. Not to mention that some of these women have these outrageous requests as far as what they're going to deal with. And to some degree, you can kind of see why, because if, let's say, 40% of women are eligible, but 100% of men are eligible, that means almost about what? Each woman gets about 2 to 3 men per piece. So they can kind of, be a little extra with it. And here's the thing. Most guys in general had no problem really competing, because like I said, if you ask most passport bros, they were able to get at least something. Might not been the one might not have been like a beauty queen, but they would at least did decently. Because as one guy has said before, women generally have a type, but men have like a range. We'll date from, in many cases, a woman who's down like from a 4 all the way up to like a 10. We have like a range of different women we'll deal with. So we're not men when they did the Tinder the Tinder experiment, they showed that most men in general were not as picky as the women when it came to choosing mates. The problem was, it's gotten to a point where even the average woman is saying things like they won't date a guy unless he makes $200,000 a year. You had Emily Williams talking about she won't date a bus driver. You got a lot of women who throw shade at men who are blue collar workers. So in many cases, and don't forget as well, the height factor as well. If you're not over 6 feet, they're not really checking for you or looking for you. So when you take all that into account, so that not only is there a smaller pool of women, but even the smaller pool of women have these extremely strict standards, and there's no way you can really leverage, there's no way you can really, put it this way, leverage outside of like your looks in many cases, because the government pretty much is a welfare state. So they incentivize a woman in every single way to kind of stay single for the most part. So it's very difficult for men to date and find a woman that makes them happy in the end. So one of the solutions men have figured out is say, hey, well, another option is I can get my passport, I can go overseas. There are plenty of women looking for well-to-do men who are respectful. And so that's one of the reasons why the passport bro movement was started. Men picked that up. They took themselves overseas, and results was through the roof. Like it was just like, it's just like coming from a desert to pretty much going from like a desert to like a fruitful, a fruitful garden. Pretty much from a desert to a fruitful garden where it rains constantly and there's much, much fruit to harvest. So, in many cases, guys could go from having no success in the West to having large amount of success in these other countries. So that's one of the main reasons. To add to that, as I've spoken before, when it comes to peace of mind, keep in mind that a lot of times the countries that a lot of passport bros go to, some passport bros, include myself, it's very peaceful to get away from a lot of the, racism in the United States, all the high-paced living in the United States, the rudeness of the people in the United States. One guy has said he didn't realize how rude Americans were until he left the country and then came back and just saw how for the most part, it's almost like a every man out for himself type of mentality versus the other countries. It's more like a community type thing where everyone kind of works together. And you got to think about it for the fact The United States is a very rich country. As a result, most people feel like they don't need one another. But in other countries where you don't have as much money, you learn to work with your family members and community to get your needs met and get things done. And as a result of them not having all the materialistic things that Americans have, they find other things to invest in that make them happy. Like they invest in their community, they invest in people around them, they invest in families and that kind of thing. So a lot of times when you go there, you'll be surprised how warm and welcoming the people are. And then when you come back to the States, it's a bit of a culture shock. So you have that, you have like the peace of mind there. Not to mention that the other problem is retiring in the United States is getting rougher and rougher. They've been talking about cutting Social Security and that kind of thing. Versus you can easily go down with 200K. You can go down to a country in South America such as Ecuador, or you can go overseas to either Thailand or the Philippines, retire there. And with that $200,000, that would survive you pretty much the rest of your retirement as long as you manage it correctly. There's actually a guy named the Sandman. He actually sells books on how there's guys literally who retired I believe in the Philippines with only $200,000. So it's very, very possible. It's very, very doable. And when you're living over there, it's not like you're struggling or anything. You're living well. You're able to eat out every single day. So a lot of guys are retiring overseas. So that's why a lot of them have become passport bros as well. Now, on top of that, what was the other thing? I also want to discuss, second chance. As I said before, there's a lot of guys who, unfortunately, in the United States, they went through some very harsh divorces. As I told you before, in many cases, women are somewhat incentivized to divorce men. And in many cases, guys in the West are starting to just avoid marriage altogether. And they almost want to give up on it because there's almost no positive outcome, and there's no real benefit to men in a lot of ways. If the woman they're going to get married to is just going to hurry up and get rid of in the marriage. I think the average marriage is only about 7 years in the United States. That's about the distance it goes is about like 7 years. Versus in some countries such as the Colombia, I think the divorce rate was only like 10%. So a lot of times in these other countries, they take marriage very seriously. They take their vows very seriously. Versus the United States, instead of death do us part, is more, when I get tired of you. When I get tired of you, I'll just end the marriage. It's more like that. So a lot of men who really want wives and really looking to build a family and want to stay with their families, they're just saying it's not really worth it in the West. I'll just become a passport bro and I'll go find me a wife overseas and I'll live happily ever after with her. But yeah, I don't want to keep this video too long. This is probably one of my shorter videos, but I just kind of want to address what this woman was talking about. She was just talking a bunch of nonsense. And I'm going to kind of end it at that. But you guys tell me what you think. What do you think what was your reason, I guess, to become a passport bro? And what do you think about what she said, like with her saying that, that this movement was created pretty much to, for the most part, bash women. That's her thing. She thinks we're some type of He-Man woman haters club type of thing. But nothing can be further from the truth. So let me know what you think. Please subscribe to my channel if you had not. I really want to push out more material. Hit the notification bell so you can know when my next video comes out. And let me know what you think in the comments. And until next time, this is your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, signing off.
Dear Passport Boys, dear Passport Bros, stop calling yourself Passport Boys and Passport Bros. Are you going to the Philippines to look for a Filipina queen or what? So stop calling yourself Passport Boys and Passport Bros. Start calling yourself Passport Kings.